Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lamborghini Heaven. It is only right that I do a video in January, the beginning of the year, down at VVS. This time last year, my first ever supercar that I drove in 2019 was a red Gallardo Super Trofeo Stradale. Today we have got the opportunity to drive a ridiculous Lamborghini that is hands down in my dream spec. I posted it on my Instagram and it got so much love that I've now got the opportunity and the permission by the owner to take it out for a drive and to get to grips with what an Aventador S is like to drive, because at the end of last year, I also did a video down at Lamborghini Chelmsford and Tunbridge Wells where I had a look at Lamborghini finance, and the Aventador S that was up for 198, done 20,000 miles, very much tickled my fancy. But before we start, I've got a couple of stats and facts to reel off, because last year, DVLA and Compare the Market combined forces and created a survey that looked at every single car that was registered in the UK. You might have seen it on my Instagram stories, but of course, I went and had a look at how many Murcielagos there are registered for the road in the UK. There are 75. To put into perspective just how little that number is, there are 417 Lamborghini Aventadors registered in the UK. 2,200 Lamborghinis, 417 of them are Aventadors, 75 are Murcielagos. Here at VVS, they have 10, meaning that they've got over 10% of the Murcielago market here in this shop. If VVS wanted to have 10% of the Aventador market, every single one of these cars would have to be Aventadors. There's 40 cars here, every single one of them would have to be Aventadors. That would be quite a sight to see. But first, before we drive this incredibly beautiful Lamborghini Aventador S, and I talk to you a little bit more about the Aventador S in general, what it's like to drive, hopefully we can get some cool shots of it driving on the road, I'll take you around some of the stock that they've got here, because it is fairly ridiculous. And a car that is in shot just about is quite rare. Check this out, we've got matching Aventador S with Gen 1 Aventador over there, apparently owned by the same person at two different times. So the same person has owned these cars, but not at the same time. Gen 1 looks so good with the yellow brake calipers. This has got the matching baby blue brake calipers. And I can't work out which one that I would have. 230, 180. There is a 50 grand difference between the two cars. And the only thing massively different about this is it's got four-wheel steer. Is that worth 50 grand? I can't work it out. But also, we've got a white SV there. We've got the balloon white Aventador Gen 1 here. This is identical spec to my Murcielago when I bought it from VVS. Balloon white, black wheels, red brake calipers, although it's got the white quilted seats inside. This is beautiful, this SVJ. Looks absolutely stunning. Don't actually know what the paint is. It's under list, which is very, very good. And I've heard that this car is the only yellow LP 570 Performante in the country. The only yellow one. Apparently there was two, and one of them's gone out to Singapore. So this is a UK supplied yellow Performante. And then everything else is just ridiculous, as it always is down here. Every time I come down here, it is like being in a toy shop. I love it. But I think we're gonna take this out for a drive. And I think by the end of today, we will work out whether 50 grand four-wheel steer is worth it. There are lots to talk about with the Aventador S, so I think let's get it outside and get it on the road. Look at that, the perfect way to start driving an Aventador S, exerting the best out of the four-wheel steer. It makes the car so much more usable. I knew I wanted to start with the four-wheel steer, but obviously actually demonstrating just how much it shrinks the car's wheelbase and also the turning circle on this thing. It's important to explain. So the Aventador S being the facelift of the first generation Aventador, the Aventador when it came out was just, it's still iconic, and it has done wonders for the Lamborghini brand. They've sold so many, they've built so many. And that's the best place that I want to start talking about the Aventador S, because I've got a fairly credible source that says that it is going to be the rarest variant of an Aventador. They made thousands of the first generation. I mean, over 5,000. There are 600 SV coupes and 500 SV roadsters. So there are 1,100 SVs in the world. And there are going to be so many more SVJs. So I just had to listen to that. 900 coupes, 900 roadsters. You've got the SVJ 63. They're going a little bit crazy now, and as they should, because they know that they can sell them all. So the Aventador S actually slotted into the production line at quite an awkward time, when SVs were really doing well for themselves in the pre-owned market, that people were snapping them up as a bit of a prospective investment, but also the SVJ was coming as well. So the S has slotted in, and not many people wanted to part X their first generation, or if they did, it was for an SV, and therefore not many people actually ordered brand new Aventador S and Aventador S Roadsters. And I was on a recent trip with someone who is incredibly knowledgeable about cars and production numbers, and he said that the Aventador S and S Roadster is going to be the rarest Lamborghini variant, therefore a pretty good investment. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that there's over 400 Aventadors in the UK and only 75 Murcielagos. So the Murcielagos are obviously the much better when it comes to investment, but I can't help but ignore how a modern V12 in this form has changed the game and moved the game forward in terms of what I'm used to with the LP640. Inside here, it's modern, it's easy to maneuver through towns, making sure that the car is a little bit more accessible and drivable for the owner of the car. You've still got the sensation of the V12. You've still got these little burbles and pops and bangs, which I'll get onto once I get out of this town and get an opportunity to open the thing up. But in terms of an introduction to driving this car, it's still got a single clutch gearbox, it's got the mid-engine V12 naturally aspirated, it's got the looks to shut down any high street, probably more so than any £1 million hypercar. The Aventador is so iconic in that sense, and driving it in baby blue just adds to the whole drama. So this car at £230,000 has done 3,500 miles. It's not as cheap as the one at Lamborghini Chelmsford, but that's done 20,000 miles and has got way less spec than this car. So actually, from a purchase point of view, this is probably the one that I would have. And who wants to see a baby blue car back on the channel? No, I didn't want to say that. I don't want to tease or tempt you guys into thinking that I'm going to buy an Aventador S next, because, I mean, that is the most ridiculous thing. It's about 90% not going to happen, but okay, here we go. We've got some national speed limit now. Lamborghini introduced the Huracan in 2014. The Aventador came out in 2011, so all of the developments that made the Huracan such a wicked supercar, the double clutch gearbox, the pops and the bangs, the pantomime that came from that mid-engine V10 that was such a mosquito on these country roads that then developed into the Performante being arguably the best ever driving Lamborghini. Lamborghini were able to implement a lot of the positives that they put into the Huracan to make the Aventador that much better. Yes, the four-wheel steer that I've talked about before makes it more of an engaging drive, but it's things like a quicker single clutch gearbox. It's known amongst the automotive world that a double clutch gearbox physically does not fit into an Aventador chassis, which is why they never did it. But what they wanted to try and do is create the best single clutch gearbox transition possible to give you a kick up the backside and kick in the back of the head when you change gear in sport and Corsa mode, but still give you the performance so that you are rivaling the likes of Porsche, McLaren and Ferrari with those gear shift times. 740 brake horsepower, naturally aspirated mid-engine V12 is a unique package that you can buy for £200,000. You can't get it from any other manufacturer. LaFerrari, which still has a hybrid system, and the V12 Pagani Zonda or Pagani Huayra. I mean, you're talking about 7-figure lumps of cash to go and buy those cars. You start getting pops and bangs on the overrun, that we first saw being introduced into Lamborghinis in the Huracan. And V12 pops and bangs are far superior to V10 pops and bangs. On every single lift off of the throttle, on every single downshift, you get thunderous pops and bangs, and that is my favourite point about the entire car, is that you get the V12 soundtrack with those pops and bangs that shudder through your body and gives you a sense of occasion like no other. We're driving a baby blue Lamborghini Aventador S, and I knew when I was going to be driving this car that I was going to fall in love all over again with driving them, because I drove a Gen 1 Aventador fairly recently and I was a little bit disappointed with how it drove. I thought that everything was a little bit too try-hard, it was a little bit too automated, and when I was jumping straight out of the Murcielago, you really have to hold on for dear life to actually get the most out of the car. But when you get the most out of it, it is one of the most enjoyable experiences that you can have behind the wheel of a car. This is like that. It is so fast, so much more responsive than a first generation, and the 740 brake horsepower just pulls and pulls and pulls. It is so fast, yet so planted. I think that's important to say, because this car will do way over 200 miles an hour and get there so easily, because the engine of this thing is so fast from 160 to 200. I've spoken to many owners of Lamborghini V12s that says this is just the fastest car from 160 to 200 they've ever driven. And I know that I should not be condoning that, and these people have been testing them on the VMAX airfields, I promise. But it's so planted. The four-wheel steer works in this car. I can't quite get my head around it in the Huracan either. I feel like the chassis is too short, and it's a little bit going against your body's physics and what you expect from a normal car. The four-wheel drive doesn't feel natural, whereas it does in this. It helps the car, and it gives you more confidence to push on. This is a proper occasion to drive. And why I believe, I truly do, it's the best V12 Lamborghini you can buy. All right then, I've had about 2 hours in the driver's seat of this Aventador S and my back is knackered. My lower back, I don't know whether it's the lumbar support or whether it's the actual driving position, but it is not friendly to humans. I mean, I'm not even that tall, I'm 5'11", but Aventadors just are not at all comfortable for long distance drives. But as good as they are, you probably would want to take it on a Monaco trip, because look at it. It's the most usable Aventador, yet they're all uncomfortable, so you can't really use them. But I've made the car absolutely filthy. Look down the side. This was pristine when I took it out of the showroom, and I mean, just look at how much mud is on the road. Like, I've tried to clean the windscreen as best as possible, but my view was being massively impaired. It's probably why people in the UK don't necessarily drive supercars, especially in a colour like this, because you get close up and it is filthy, absolutely filthy. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen, I just drove my dream spec, dream Lamborghini Aventador. This is the best Lamborghini variant Aventador that you can buy. 230 grand, 3,500 miles. It's got all of the right spec, and overall, in this colour, it is absolutely stunning. Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already. Take care, goodbye.